Welcome back to Christian Bootcamp. We're talking some more about love. We want to give you some examples from what we had yesterday. Here's a story. I sat with two friends in the picture window of a quaint restaurant just off the corner of the town square. The food and the company were both especially good that day. As we talked, my attention was drawn outside across the street. There, walking into town, was a man who appeared to be carrying all his worldly goods on his back. He was carrying a well-worn sign that read, "I will work for food." My heart sank. I brought him to the attention of my friends and noticed that others around us had stopped eating to focus on him. Heads moved in a mixture of sadness and disbelief. We continued with our meal, but his image lingered in my mind. We finished our meal and went our separate ways. I had errands to do and quickly set out to accomplish them. I glanced toward the town square, looking somewhat half-heartedly for the strange visitor. I was fearful, knowing that seeing him again would cause some response. I drove through town and saw nothing. I made some purchases at a store and got back in my car. Deep within me, the Spirit of God kept speaking to me. Don't go back to the office until you've at least driven once more around the square. I want to stop for a minute. We've talked about this before. We really, really need to learn to listen to the Spirit of God. Many times he talks in a, whisper. But the more we listen to him, the louder that whisper becomes. So I pray that you listen to him today. Continuing with the story. Then with some hesitancy, I headed back into the town. As I turned the square's third corner, I saw him. He was standing on the steps of the storefront church, going through his sack. I stopped and looked, feeling both compelled to speak to him, yet wanting to drive on. The empty parking space on the corner seemed to be a sign from God, an invitation to park. I pulled in, got out, and approached the town's newest visitor. "Looking for the pastor?" I asked. "Not really," he replied, "just resting." "Have you eaten today?" "Oh, I ate something early this morning." "Would you like to have lunch with me? Do you have some work I could do for you?" "No work," I replied. "I commute here to work from the city, but I would like to take you to lunch." "Sure," he replied with a smile. As he began to gather his things, I asked some surface questions. "Where are you headed?" "St. Louis." "Where are you from?" "Oh, all over, mostly Florida." "How long have you been walking?" 14 years, came the reply. I knew I had met someone unusual. We sat across from each other in the same restaurant I had left earlier. His face was weathered slightly beyond his 38 years. His eyes were dark yet clear, and he spoke with an eloquence and articulation that was startling. He removed his jacket to reveal a bright red t-shirt that said, "Jesus is the never-ending story." Then Daniel's story began to unfold. He had seen rough times early in life. He had made some wrong choices and reaped the consequences. 14 years earlier, while backpacking across the country, he had stopped on the beach in Daytona. He tried to hire on with some men who were putting up a large tent and some equipment, a concert, he thought. He was hired, but the tent would not house a concert, but revival services, and in those services he saw life more clearly. He gave his life over to God. "Nothing's been the same since," he said. "I felt the Lord telling me to keep walking, and so I did for some 14 years now." "Ever think of stopping?" I asked. "Oh, once in a while, when it seems to get the best of me, but God has given me this calling. I give out Bibles. That's what's in my sack. I work to buy food. and Bibles, and I give them out when His Spirit leads. I sat amazed. My homeless friend was not homeless. He was on a mission and lived this way by choice. The question burned inside for a minute, and then I asked, "What's it like?" "What?" "To walk into a town carrying all your things on your back and to show your sign." Oh, it was humiliating at first. People would stare and make comments, and once someone tossed a piece of half-eaten bread and made a gesture that certainly didn't make me feel welcome. But then it became humbling to realize that God was using me to touch lives and change people's concepts of other folks like me. My concept was changing too. We finished our dessert and gathered his things. Just outside the door he paused. He turned to me and said, "Come, ye blessed of my Father, and inherit the kingdom I've prepared for you. For when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. A stranger, and you took me in." I felt as if I were on holy ground. "Could you use another Bible?" I asked. He said he preferred a certain translation. It traveled well and was not too heavy. It was also his personal favorite. "I've read through it 14 times, he said. "I'm not sure we've got one of those, but let's stop by our church and see." I was able to find my new friend a Bible that would do well, and he seemed very grateful. "Where are you headed from here?" I asked. "Well, I found this little map on the back of this amusement park coupon." "Are you hoping to hire on there for a while?" "No, I just figure I should go there. I figure someone under that star right there needs a Bible, so that's where I'm going next." He smiled, and the warmth of his spirit radiated the sincerity of his mission. I drove him back to the town square where we'd met 2 hours earlier, and as we drove, it started raining. We parked and unloaded his things. "Would you sign my autograph book?" he asked. "I like to keep messages from folks I meet." I wrote in his little book that his commitment to his calling had touched my life. I encouraged him to stay strong, and I left him with a verse of scripture from Jeremiah. "I know the plans I have for you, declared the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope." "Thanks, man," he said. "I know we just met, and we're really just strangers, but I love you." "I know," I said. "I love you too. The Lord is good." "Yes, He is. How long has it been since someone hugged you?" I asked. "A long time," he replied. And so on the busy street corner in the drifting rain, my new friend and I embraced, and I felt deep inside that I had been changed. He put his things on his back, smiled his winning smile, and said, "See you in the New Jerusalem." "I'll be there," was my reply. He began his journey again. He headed away from his sign dangling from his bedroll and pack of Bibles. He stopped, turned, and said, "When you see something that makes you think of me, will you pray for me?" "You bet," I shouted back. "God bless. God bless." And that was the last I saw of him. Late that evening, as I left my office, the wind blew strong. The cold front had settled hard upon the town, and I bundled up and hurried to my car. As I sat back and reached for the emergency brake, I saw them, a pair of well-worn work gloves, neatly laid over the length of the handle. I picked them up and thought of my friend and wondered if his hands would stay warm that night without them. Then I remembered his words. "If you see something that makes you think of me, will you pray for me?" Today, his gloves lie on a desk in my office. They help me to see the world and its people in a new way, and they help me remember those 2 hours with my unique friend and to pray for his ministry. "See you in the New Jerusalem," he said. "Yes, Daniel, I know I will." Remember, we pass this way but once. Therefore, any good that I can do, or any kindness that I can show, let me do it now, for I shall not pass this way again. I hope and pray you were touched like me. Remember, our opportunities to love happen when they happen. We may or may not, see them again. Now we're going to stop and let you think about that. Remember, on your to-do list today, I want you to write in your journal, and I want you to write some people that you think need loved in your town or in your neighborhood. And I want you to pray about it. And then I want you to, when God leads you, write down in your book, in your journal, how you can love them. We'll come back tomorrow. God bless.